Hello, Cosmic Witches. Welcome back to another episode of the Divine Gossip Girls with me, Maggie, Carly, and Sophie. Today, we are continuing our chat about the chakras. Last week's episode, we covered the base, the bottom three chakras, and now we're going forwards with the top four. We'll be chatting about the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown chakra today, and how you can kind of work with it, what it has felt like to work with these spaces and these energy centers for us, and the lessons that you can learn there. These episodes are extra special to me for many reasons. First of all, Sophie was here in person with me in Copenhagen, so I just felt like the energy was off the charts when we were recording. But also because I love personally working with the chakras. It's been something I've done for my entire spiritual journey. It's something I'm so passionate about, and it's the base of Carly, Sophie, and I's signature 3-week challenge program sort of thing, Aura Elevation. We have run Aura Elevation twice before, and we're headed into our third round. I am so excited for this round of Aura Elevation. We've named it Ground Your Magic, where we're going to work with each of the chakras to give you a mini challenge to ground into the energy, explore and understand the energy of that chakra, and then the next day expand through the magic of it and find that extra little spark in the energy for you. There's going to be so many amazing things within Aura Elevation. Aura Elevation is a 3-week mini program run by all three of us, where you will have 14 challenges and 7 integration days. There will also be a passive regression led by me, a Reiki circle led by Carly, and a high vibrational safety workshop led by Sophie. There's so many more goodies, like a little witchy cookbook for the chakras that I've created for you, and you can get all of this for only $49. When you break it down, it's only $2.33 a day, less than a cup of coffee. So if you're ready to get serious about your spiritual journey, if you're ready to find a little bit of magic and you want a community and a space to hold you and support you and lift you up, this is the space for you. It doesn't matter if you are a beginner or a seasoned spiritual gal, really doesn't matter. This is a space for all levels of spirituality. We have beginners and we also have people who have been around the block, so to say. So if this is something that sounds exciting to you, we'd love to have you. Like I said, it's only $49 and you will get so much transformation within your own energy, and you can just come back to yourself and discover yourself a little bit more. So we hope to see you there, in a place where we can all ground into our own energy and discover our magic together. All right, but without further ado, let's just jump right into today's episode, all about the top chakras. Hey Cosmic Witches! Divine Gossip Girls here, your one and only source into the spiritual happenings of the cosmos.
Ever wonder what this month's energy will have in store for you? What the planets and stars are even up to? Or if the universe can just help you catch a break already?
Well, lucky you, because we have all the spiritual secrets to tell. Get ready to sip on your weekly dose of divine tea.
Okay, let's dive into the heart chakra. And obviously this is a big one for me. One, because I have an underlying heart condition, and I feel like I've been on this healing journey of healing my relationship with my heart, because actually Carly took me through a Reiki session this year at some point. I can't really remember, but she took me through a Reiki session, and she's seen these cages, like she's seen this bright light want to shine from my heart center, but there was just like these cages like blocking it for multiple reasons. But I know that, like I said, like I have an underlying heart condition, and I think I attach these stories and these meanings that it's hard for me to survive, or that I have to fight, or that everything is hard, and it's just like all of these blocks like stopping me from feeling like safe to just like be at ease and shine and just receive, like allow my heart to just receive with ease. And obviously I've been on this healing journey of like shifting out of that and like breaking down these cages, like breaking down these barriers and like leading from my heart, but from that like heart centered like healing place, like following my heart and allowing myself to trust in it and know that I'm safe, know that I'm safe to follow my heart and I know that where I am today, like I'm currently sitting in Copenhagen with Maggie, like recording these podcast episodes with Carly over in the States. And I know that I've gotten here because of my heart. Like I've listened to my heart, I've followed my heart. And instead of thinking it's like something that's broken or something that's bad or something that's not as strong as other people's, actually, like my heart is a miracle. Actually, like the energy within my heart is so miraculous and so special. And I've been like healing my relationship with that chakra on like such a deep level. And I still am, because I really closed it off in so many levels and relationships and just myself and just life in general, and I've been starting to like open it up bit by bit each and every day throughout this spiritual journey. And it's like already I've attracted and allowed myself to receive such abundance and love and healing within myself, but just like within life, within my relationship. So this is obviously like a chakra that is deep to me, like is a big part of me, and it's like something that I always come back to, and something I'm actually like constantly healing my heart, and I'm kind of like starting to open myself up to love as well, because like I've never allowed myself to be in love. Like I've never been in love, even though I know that love is like my natural state. But because of like just like my upbringing, because of my trauma with my heart, I've like closed myself off in so many ways. And I've realized that because I've been closing myself off to love, like it's just been closed off in general. So like it's starting to just open myself up on all levels within my heart chakra. That's kind of like where I'm at with things with that.
Well, and I think a lot of times too with the heart, it's a lot about recognizing that we are always so willing to give, but it's so hard sometimes for ourselves to open up to receive. And we have a lot of blocks just saying like, oh, I'm not worthy of this, or I don't deserve, this level of love, or, this isn't something that I deserve. Like I should just always give, give, give. But we start to recognize that if we're always giving without allowing ourselves to receive, we are always coming from this like depleted state. And so a lot of times it comes from, instead of it being like this divine giving, it comes from this place of like ego. And I notice like a lot of blocks around the heart lead to people pleasing, because you are kind of giving in hopes that you will receive, not recognizing that receiving is actually a given when you open yourself up to it. Like everyone is a natural flow of divine energy if they allow themselves to be open. But because so many of us have been conditioned to believe that we don't deserve to receive, that there's something wrong or broken within us that makes us unworthy of receiving love that is healthy, that is healed, that is high vibrational, we block ourselves off. And so I think, Sophie, I feel very connected to that idea. I feel like I've been doing a lot of work myself and opening up my heart space to receiving again and working with any sort of blocks around unworthiness that I've had. So for me, like heart tapping has been a huge thing, like every single morning. And it's so interesting when you start working with the heart and start tapping on it, like how uncomfortable it is to open your chest up. Like so many of us sit hunched over, and unconsciously we do that because we're trying to close ourselves off, protect ourselves, shut ourselves off from receiving. But I've been practicing with myself, reminding myself that I deserve love. Like love is unconditional. And no matter if I'm healthy or not healthy, I'm feeling happy or sad, or I'm mad, or, no matter what, I deserve love. And as a child, I would block myself off from it. I'd be like, oh, if I'm ever upset or angry, I don't deserve love right now, because I saw whenever my dad was super angry, I would see him as someone that I didn't want to be around. So then when I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling sad, I'm like, oh, okay, I don't deserve to receive love now, because I felt like that with my dad. So that was a big thing that I started to do this year, is practice tapping and saying, okay, today I'm feeling angry. Today I'm feeling sad, and I am still worthy of love.
Yeah, I think that how I see the chakras, I love how you're saying like love, but also anger and all these other emotions, I think we can focus so much on love when it comes to the heart chakra and not look at all the other emotions. Like our heart chakra, yes, it's love, but it also holds all other emotions, right? We do have feelings of safety, but I wouldn't say safety is like a feeling. It's more of like a concept. Like it is a feeling, but it's also like a
Like
concept
a
that comes
knowing.
from feeling held and
Yeah.
feeling like there's other emotions that live underneath it, but they all stem up, and like you really have so many emotions: sadness, grief, anger, frustration, happiness, joy, love, all of like everything that you feel is in that heart chakra, in that heart space. And I think love is focused on so much, and that's so important because we all deserve love, and it's one of the most high vibrational energies with love and gratitude that you can feel. But it's also just important to do the shadow work, because that's what the heart chakra is all about. It's where we hold our emotions. And whereas the bottom three chakras that we talked about last week, those chakras are our energy centers to get to know ourselves. It's our own relationship to us. It's our personal energy, personal power. It's our beliefs. And then you reach the heart chakra, and it's almost like the root chakra, but in a different way. Rather than the root chakra being like, what are my beliefs about my life and who I am and how I need to function in the world? When we get to the heart chakra, it's what are my beliefs of how I fit into the world around me? So the heart chakra is that place where we start to, the heart and throat is kind of where we start to realize, how do I relate to my environment? How do I relate to other people? How do I relate to the world around me? And then when we get to that third eye in the crown, it gets to be, how do I relate to oneness? How do I relate to spirituality? How do I relate to the universe? So we go bottom chakras, relation to self; middle chakras, relation to our environment and others around us; top chakras, relation to oneness, spirituality, source.
I always say too, and that maybe this will help you guys out, is like the heart is the voice box of the soul. So like it kind of through emotions, like your emotions are always communicating to you how you are relating to your thoughts, feelings, and like environments around you. So for me, like a big thing is like heart tapping and asking, like creating a communicative pathway with my heart, because the more connected you are to the heart, the more connected you are to your soul's guidance, because your emotions and your sensations are really speaking to you through the heart. So the more that you can be in connection to the heart, the more that you can be in connection to the soul. And so the more that I've kind of connected to that, I'm like, okay, like my heart is your heart is one of the biggest energetic centers of, it carries a lot of energy. And for a lot of people, it's like this big bright thing that's like trying to communicate with you. It's just whether or not you are opened to receiving its wisdom and its guidance and its knowledge. And the more that you do that, the more you're directed by your soul, which I think is really cool.
I think as kids, our heart chakras are just so open. Like kids just will be crying on the ground. They express themselves completely fully. And I'm not saying you need to go like throw a tantrum at the grocery store, but like children allow themselves to be so emotionally free, and we are taught to like cage up our emotions, to not show our emotions, that emotions are bad, that if you cry in front of someone, that's embarrassing. If you are upset, just don't talk about it, and internalize. And this ends up putting this big lock over our heart chakra, and we don't know then how to even deal with our emotions to bridge that gap to the throat chakra. We don't even know how to deal with our emotions ourselves, let alone be able to speak them out loud, speak them to other people.
And it's funny because obviously I was saying about how I've been on this whole healing journey on my heart as well. And the start of this year, like the very start of this year, like as I was like in the midst of like the biggest tower moment of my freaking life, I started to go to these like in-person heartfulness meditations. And I remember going and being like, oh, these are just donation based, let's go. Because I wanted to start doing more in-person kind of meditations and push myself outside my comfort zone in that kind of way. And I remember going, I had no idea, like leading up to this, the only meditation I'd done was like guided ones, so like I go into this room and it's like with a complete strangers, And we sit down and it is complete silence, like a complete silent meditation with your heart. You do a little guided relaxation, go through like your full body and relax your body, and then you sit for 20 to 30 minutes just connecting with your heart. And I'd done that like every single week, every Wednesday, like for months and months and months. And you just sit with the emotions that come up, the sensations that come up, like the light that comes through. And it was just so healing. Like every time I left, like with like a weight lifted off and that deeper connection, like with my heart center, because you just allowed yourself to like sit with it, you know, in silence, just with your heart and your emotions and what wanted to come through.
I think the most important thing, thank you for saying this, because I think this is such an important message. I think the most important thing you can do to heal your heart chakra is to just sit with emotions and realize that I am angry. I'm going to sit with this anger. It's going to like explode inside of me, and then it's going to pass. And the biggest thing you can realize with your heart chakra is that your emotions guide you. Your emotions show you like that is not working. This person is making you feel this. This situation needs to change, but your energy and you yourself are not your emotions. Emotions are fleeting. Emotions are triggers.
Are messages.
They're messages. Exactly.
I love that.
They're these triggers of like, you're triggered by something that makes you feel so loved and happy. Oh my gosh, I want more. Like triggers don't have to be a bad thing. A trigger is just, it creates something. So you want triggers in your life that make you feel loved. You want these, these buttons that get pressed that make you feel joyful. You want these really like high vibrational triggers in your life, and emotions are going to show you, yeah, that's where they are. But they're also going to show you, oh, that situation is not okay. I am angry. I am upset. I am hurt. And learning, okay, my emotions are not me. They're my triggers, they're my reaction, but they're not my energy. They're not actually me. They're just messages, can be really powerful.
Yeah. And I think that's like the whole idea that comes through. And it's like your heart is the voice box. It is the messenger. It is the person, and not the person, but the energy center that's communicating to you. All right, how is this feeling? How am I relating to this thing? And also recognizing that your emotional body is your entire body. So you may feel anger in the belly, even though it's coming from the heart. So like for me, when I'm tuning into the heart, I'm doing my heart tapping. I'm like, all right, what do you have anything to tell me? Is there anything that needs to come through right now? I may start to feel like anger in my shoulders and like this tension, and I will just feel it, and it will start to like soften and kind of unravel. And I find that the more that I started to communicate with my heart, the stronger that I was able to understand my emotions. And that's why so much of the time you see people with like anger issues, or you see people with like feeling emotionally like unstable. It's because we're never taught how to process and work with our emotions. Like we learn so many things in school, but we do not learn how to work with our emotions or understand them or learn from them. And I think working with your heart center is probably one of the most powerful things you can do to learn how to navigate life from a feel good place. And when we talk about like flowing and like being in flow, I think a lot of that flow energy stems from also connecting to your emotional state and knowing how to communicate it. It's like in the sacral, we start to understand like emotions, and then it's through the heart that we learn how to address them. And then it's through the throat that we learn how to then communicate them. So they all really work one together. And even moving from the heart into the throat, whenever I work with clients, I do like to sometimes work with the throat even before we address the heart, because I see that the throat is really like a light bulb to the heart center. Because when we can open up the pathway of communication, we can better understand what's trying to come through from the heart. We can speak it out, we can express it. So a lot of times the blocks within our heart are sometimes blocks within the throat.
I think it's because we're taught not to share our emotions. We're taught we're not, like you were saying, we're not taught how to. I think in an ideal world where we're taught that our emotions are safe to be expressed, that we shouldn't bottle things up, we would work with the heart first. But because we go so far in life pushing them down, sometimes we don't know how to access them without saying it out loud. Sometimes we have to admit it to somebody else before we can admit it to ourselves
and start looking at it like on a deeper level. You know?
Exactly. So I think naturally we would go to our heart first and it would flow into the throat. But I think due to the world that we grow up in, and due to the way that we're told to deal with our emotions, it's hard for us to even access them, even when we feel them so fully that they're, you know, debilitating almost, that they're hurting us. We still don't know how to work with them or heal them. So first we have to say them out loud and admit them.
And then people don't, like, the people feel blocked in doing that, so they turn to like alcohol, they turn to abuse, they turn to drugs, you know, to start numbing that, because they do, they feel it all, but they're too scared to like actually start to voice that and admit that. And I think once you start, like Carly said, like once you start, that light starts to shine, you know, the light starts to shine. And I know that you've done like a lot, like you help a lot of your clients on like their throat chakra as well, right?
I've done a lot with throat chakra. I've always like, I remember when I first learned about the chakras, I was like, oh, I have no problem with my throat chakra because I can chat anyone's ear off, and I love to sing, and I'm always using my throat chakra. But I think it was one of those things where I had a very open throat chakra, but I had a lot of blocks below. So my throat chakra, I could chat about the weather for 2 hours with someone, but I didn't know. I still can, right? But I didn't know how to chat about things that I needed. I didn't know how to stand in my personal power. I didn't know that side of things because I wasn't getting the energy from my heart. I wasn't getting the energy.
Or even just now, like you're still working on like asking for support.
Exactly.
You know? Like that's something that you've been, like we've been encouraging you to lean into as well. It's like you don't have to do everything on your own. Like speak, ask for support, say how you're feeling, tell us how you're feeling, you know?
And that's because I do have like, and I have been working on that like solar plexus space, that personal power where someone came in and just ripped my personal power from me and took it from themselves. And so that wasn't actually a problem with my throat. It's not a problem with my throat. It's a problem deeper down, but my throat is very open. But some people, it gets to the throat and they're like, I know exactly how I feel. I'm so clear within myself. I just don't know how to say it out loud.
Express it.
Exactly. And I also have found the throat chakra is something that I think a lot of people, they may get to the throat and they're like, I don't even know why I can't say it out loud. I don't even understand why I can't do this. And sometimes it is in this life, but I think there's lots of past life ties around the throat chakra. Like when I've gone into past lives, I've had a lot of trauma around the throat, physical trauma around the throat. And also there's been a lot of like emotional trauma of not being able to speak up and different things like that. And, you know, I have a lot of problems with my thyroid, and they do say that 3 out of 5 women have thyroid conditions. And yes, that's going to be something that can just happen. It has nothing to do. We don't blame ourselves for illnesses that our bodies decide to take on. But I think a lot of the time as women, we do have illnesses around the throat because for generations ancestrally, our voice hasn't been strong and it's trying to come out. These toxins and this energy are trying to come out any way it can.
The kind of like signal. Right. And I feel like sometimes the things that happen physically in our body are just, once again, messengers. Anything that happens within our body is a messenger for something that's trying to get our attention. But I think for me, when it comes to the throat, has been about learning to communicate my emotions and my desires clearly. And I've noticed for me, like, I don't know if you guys have had this before, where it's like I'll be in social settings, and even though I know it's not the way that I am and what feels good, I will come off as someone totally different. And I'm like, why did I just come off that way? Like, that's not what I actually want or like who I actually am. Like, why did I just like do that? But it's kind of like we have learned to take on different personas and learn to kind of communicate and come into contact with the world in a certain way that pleases others. And as we grow up, we start to recognize that that's not actually our truth. And I think that's where a lot of blocks around the throat are, where it's like when we go to articulate our truth, sometimes instead of it coming out as what really feels like soul aligned, it comes off as like this kind of wounded or this conditioned pattern that we are. And I'm even thinking like once I got out of my like past relationship and I did a lot of healing work around just myself and understanding like, okay, who is it that I am like on my own, and how is it that I want to show up in a relationship? And then I went back into the dating scene and I just saw myself like sharing the side of myself that isn't actually true to who I really am. And I'm like, why am I doing this right now? And it's so much around the throat where it's like, okay, I just got to catch myself. Like, just kind of catch those weird little blockages that still try to pop up and keep me small.
It's so funny that you're saying that because I really do see mirrors between the chakras. Like I see the heart and the root as very connected, just in different ways. I see the throat and the solar plexus connected. Your solar plexus is like, this is my empowerment. This is my self-power. This is who I am. And then your throat is like, and now I'm going to express it. And then when we do move on to the third eye, I see that third eye is that intuition, like as the sacral as well, because the third eye is very much like connected to that sacral. People say, listen to your gut, right? And it's the same thing with the throat chakra. You have like the throat chakra and the solar plexus of self-expression.
I think once it comes to the throat, like a lot of people see throat as like setting boundaries, and I think that's a truth of the throat is learning how to communicate like, okay, what it is that I need, but it's also just recognizing that it's also being able to communicate with yourself. Like oftentimes we don't even validate our own feelings and emotions, and I think the throat is kind of like that own validator. Like we often look in our external for, oh, like this, like these people need to validate me, they need to see me, they need to do it. But with the throat, it's also about doing it for yourself, like sitting there and being like, you know what, today I'm not feeling great, and that is valid. Like validating yourself more often versus always doubting yourself, or kind of like pushing that, you know, your needs and your wants and your desires to the ground. It's empowering them and also like validating them yourself. I think that has a lot to do with the throat. And then moving from the throat and speaking that out into existence, we go into the third eye.
And one more thing I want to touch on, and I think you'll have a lot to say.
I was just about to say this as well.
Boundaries is like speaking up, and like I think setting boundaries is one of the things I associate with the throat chakra the most.
And that's something I've been working on a lot recently, and it's been difficult. Like it has been difficult for me, right? Like to actually stand in my voice, stand in my, like you just said, like you connect the throat chakra with the solar plexus. And it makes sense for what I've been moving through, because I've had to use my voice to stand in my worthiness, to stand in what I deserve, to stand in what is right for me on that, like that deeper level, and like connect those two chakras together and like put those boundaries in place and speak up for myself, you know, and connect that worthiness through using your voice. And that's something that I've been obviously navigating for months and months. And like, I've had the push of Carly and Maggie. But you can then, it like activates it even more and more, right? And that deeper connection can start to happen.
And I think the boundary is really, for me, like boundaries is such the bridge from the throat chakra to the intuition, because you need to set boundaries with others who are trying to influence you so that you can listen to your inner knowing, so you can trust yourself. Exactly. You have to trust yourself to say like, this is not enough for me. This is not okay for me. Because if you can't set those boundaries and be like, this energy is not for me, or someone says you should do this and you say no, or then you can't trust your own intuition and your own personal voice and wisdom and power. So much of the time our boundaries are crossed because we're like, I want to do this thing, and other people say, no, that's not realistic. No, you shouldn't do that. And we allow them to,
like, their projected fear.
Exactly. We allow their fear, their ideas, their vision to cloud our own. And so then by setting these boundaries, it allows our intuition to shine really bright. And that's what feeds that third eye, which is such a magical chakra. It's that inner knowing. It's your bridge to the divine of, okay, let me trust myself. Let me find my gifts. Let me trust my magic, my inner knowing, what I'm being called to do. And that first spark of inner knowing is what then allows you to connect with that oneness.
Yeah. And that's like, I've been on a complete like journey with all of them. I've been on a journey with, but that's what I had to do. Like when I first stepped into all of this work, I was someone who was like chronic people pleaser, or always looked at other people and what they thought I should do or they think was best for me. And I had to really start to put these boundaries in place and take a step back from what I thought other people's opinion and start to trust in my own intuition, because I didn't have that relationship with my intuition. Like I didn't have one. I didn't think I could trust myself. I didn't trust myself. And I was always looking outside of myself for that approval or for those answers. So by like starting to like stop asking for that and start to like connect with my intuition, that's when I started to do all that I'm doing, to start my podcast, to start my business, to open myself up to like better friendships and things like that.
To fuel your third eye, to
Yeah.
like trust that magic that's within you. And I know I'd really love to hear what you have to say too, Carly, about the third eye, because I feel like you tapping into your like channeling and psychic abilities. Like I literally remember talking to you a year ago and you're like, I'm not a psychic. And then you're like going into all of this channeling so much more. So I'd love to know how you really like allowed your third eye to shine.
I do. I want to say that as you were mentioning, like, I think the throat has so much to do with the third eye, and releasing self-doubt is such a big thing that happens with the throat that empowers your third eye. Because if you're constantly questioning yourself, you're never going to be able to connect your intuition, because your intuition is the most subtle and the thing that makes no sense at all. Like, you literally could be going about something and then all of a sudden your intuition can be like, do this. And you're like, most people won't even be able to hear it because they're so wrapped up in the ego and always doubting themselves, never trusting themselves. So that's why when I think I started working more with just making it a non-negotiable to release self-doubt, like anytime I felt myself have a desire, a need, anything like that, even if I wasn't to act upon it, I would at least validate it. And I would be like, you know what, this makes sense. And I would just listen into it. And the more that I started to do that, the more that then I picked up on intuitive urges and intuitive nudges of, you should try out this, you should do this, this would be fun. And I would say, okay. And the more I would start to lean into the little messages, the little intuitive nudges that started to come through, it was like doors started to unfold and like things just started to kind of align for me, that if I didn't take that action, I wouldn't have ever come this far. I don't think if I didn't listen to my intuition, I would have never met Sophie. We would have never started Aura Elevation. I would have never met you, Maggie. I would have never started to allow myself to tap into Reiki and make my business more spiritual.
I think it's so interesting, really quick, about this idea that intuition energy is really subtle, because I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it is in a lot of us, but I don't think it has to be. I think our intuition can be loud and strong and screaming.
I always think that as well.
But I think
it's when we first start.
Mm-hmm. I think when you start, it's subtle, because what I was saying, all your other chakras have those blockages in them, that the amount of energy, it's like you have blockages in your root, and then you go up and more of your energy gets tampered and blocked in your sacral. And it's like, by the way, by the time it makes it all the way up to your intuition, there's a whisper of energy there. So you're like, oh yeah, I have to listen like so closely to it. I need to listen because it's so subtle. And it's because so much of your energy is being blocked in other places. So when you allow yourself to do the work, starting at the root and working your way up, when you really are like, okay, now I guess it's time to work with my intuition, it can be a lot louder. But I think so many of us, when we get into this work, we don't understand how our energy flows. So we just start working with the intuition and we're like, oh, it's just a little teeny tiny whisper. But if you can start from the root, like we're doing in Aura Elevation, you start at the root. By the time you get to your third eye chakra, by the time you get to that intuitive place,
so bright,
it can be so much louder, and you can be like, oh my gosh, I've never been able to listen to myself, to this energy like this before.
And I think when you start like tapping into it as well, and you start taking those steps from that place, and you start attracting the people, attracting the opportunities, it starts to fit into place, things start to come into that physical reality as well, and you're like, oh wait, okay, so like when I do start to listen to this part of me, I do start to attract and achieve the things that I have been desiring, but I didn't think were actually possible for me. So I think that also then deepens the connection and the relationship as well, and that muscle within you to start like listening to it even more and opening yourself up to hearing it as well, because there's that trust that's starting to be built.
Exactly. It's like at first you start and it's like there is a whisper. Then you heal everything below. You've had to feed it, right? You've given yourself the fuel into your third eye, and then it becomes this muscle that you work, where you do these things, like you were saying, Carly, where you start to work it. I always say, like, do these small things where you just go for intuitive walks and you start to notice, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful I went this way and I listened to my intuition because I saw this beautiful tree or this really cute cat. But it's all about really starting to build that muscle.
Well, and I think something that a lot of people do is they will try something a few times and then say it doesn't work, when, like we're mentioning, with every single thing that we do, whether it's a practice, whether it's a, like, it's, everything is a muscle. Your intuition is a muscle. And if you don't work with it and you don't practice it and you don't strengthen it, of course it's going to feel weaker. And if you have those blocks in the way, of course it's going to feel weaker. And that's like, if you don't start with finding safety within, there is no way that you're going to be able to open yourself up, because you're so much in that fight or flight, you're so much in the ego, that of course if you're in that place where the mind is super loud and you're so in like these very stern, like this very rigid, closed off energy, how are you supposed to be open to receiving intuitive guidance that is all about this receiving energy? No one's going to be in receptive energy when they're in fight or flight in control mode. So that's once again why it is so powerful to work with the root. And I think that is truly why, in terms of energetically healing, I have become more and more like intuitive and psychic. Is I honestly think, well, we know that everyone has intuition. Everyone is psychic. We all have a sixth sense. It's just whether or not you work to open yourself up to it. And I think more people have that calling to do it. Not everyone's here like, I'm going to become a psychic. Like, this is my path. This is what I meant to do. I'm very connected to this. Like, not everyone's going to have that, but everyone has the ability to connect and strengthen their intuition and strengthen that sixth sense if they desire to. And I really do believe the more that you start to do this work, rooting to rise, it will just be a natural thing that happens.
I think it's this receiving energy, this interconnectedness, this opening up to these gifts within our intuition. Our intuition isn't what allows mediums to be mediums or people to connect with their spirit guides. Intuition is really just trusting yourself to take these messages that are channeling through you and trusting yourself to relay them, trusting yourself to believe them, trusting that your inner knowing is picking up on the right thing. So once you really trust your intuition, you trust yourself, you trust what you are telling yourself, it bridges this gap to this crown chakra place where you're just aligned into oneness. You're just really like blasted open. Your crown chakra, I always say, once you reach the crown, if you think your crown chakra is blocked, it's probably a block somewhere beneath that with a different chakra, because your crown chakra is really just your gate to the unknown. It's your gate to the source. To source, to universe, to everything that's around you. It is your tie to what's out there in the world. So that's where you receive the messages. And sometimes you can't, relay those messages to yourself or to others because you don't trust yourself to. You're not listening to, because you don't trust yourself to receive them. Yeah. You can't trust yourself to even know what you want. And so once you really, really work and you open that third eye chakra, the gates should be just blasted right open to hear everything that wants to come through and to be able to just surrender to that.
And I think when people feel blocks within their crown chakra, it's not necessarily that there is a block, but it's just a struggle with trusting in the unfolding of your potential, your path, trusting that you are divinely guided. Like, I don't think it's so much a question of a block, but a question of, do you have faith? Do you have faith that you are supported? Do you have faith that you are divinely guided? And I think where you can do work with your crown is just integrating more empowering spiritual beliefs. Like, the more that I have integrated empowering spiritual beliefs, the more that I have been able to lean on like my spiritual faith in times of tower moments, in times of, wondering how the hell all the puzzle pieces will fit together. I say, you know what? I don't know everything. I don't know how it's all going to unfold or unravel, but I trust that it will. And I think building that trust and building that faith is how you strengthen your crown chakra, and you just can feel that connection whenever you need.
And I think that when you look at that trust, like, this is what I always work with my clients. It's like, yes, it's this trust, but why isn't the trust there? It's not necessarily a thing of like strength. Yes, it's strengthening the trust, but you don't just do that by being like, I am going to trust. Like, you do that by realizing why.
Yeah. Uncovering the deeper reasons why.
And usually that deeper reason is an energetic block below. I don't trust because I don't feel worthy. Well, then let's look at that solar plexus. I don't trust because
I don't feel safe.
Yeah. Let's look at the root.
Yeah,
I don't
safety.
Trust because I don't trust myself. That's the intuition. Yeah. I don't trust because don't trust myself to be able to have the capacity to hold this love, like to feel this emotion, it's like, why don't you trust? And you can find it below, and then you work through that. And what it does is it feeds your trust, right? It feeds that open channel to just be like, oh, here's more energy that we're shooting upwards. And it's a really beautiful chakra because it's the chakra of surrender. And you can't as soon as you try and force yourself to surrender, you're not surrendering because you're trying to be like,
about control and the surrendering.
Exactly. So it's like, it's just this natural state of being. This crown should be this natural state of being. So yeah, why don't you have faith? Why don't you trust? And where is that energy coming from?
Yeah, I think that really concludes it all. I think we've moved through the chakras. We've kind of blasted you guys wide open. I think when we began, we were like, okay, let's just talk about little bits and pieces of how we've worked with our chakras. But no, if anyone has been wondering anything about the chakras, I feel like this has given you a booklet on it. And, whatever sticks with you and feels good with you, amazing. Take it and run with it. But we would love to have you inside of Aura Elevation and just really continue to support your healing, continue to support your energetic evolution.
And imagine if this is what you got from 2 30-40 minute episodes, what you can get from working with that energy for 3 weeks.
Yeah, if you've been listening to these 2 episodes and you're like, oh my god, this is exciting. Like, if you've been led to these episodes for a reason, you've listened to them for a reason, you're like, right, okay, maybe, yeah, like I want more. I want to actually dive through them, like go through them, move through them. Then yeah, defo come join us because we're super, super excited.
And it's only $49 for 3 weeks of support from us, support from yourself, and support from a beautiful community that we always have every single time. I think that, we're trying to keep spirituality and healing accessible, and it's $49 for this beautiful healing experience.
Yes, join us. The link will be below. We would love to have you. And also share the link with anyone that you think might be interested or might benefit from this space. We really do want to make it accessible, and we would love to have as many beautiful souls in it as we can support. So we'll leave all the links below to Aura Elevation. Reminder that the doors close on Monday, January 22nd. So get your booty inside, and we will see you then. Bye. Bye.